Welcome to my February 2022 monthly wrap-up video. We're going to get right into this with the first book, The Kite Runner, by Khalid Hussini. The Kite Runner is about the son of a rich man in Kabul, Afghanistan, who grows up with his servant, and they're kind of like friends. And they grow up, they experience terrible things, and then the main character has like no courage, but then later in life he gets a chance to um, make right on his wrongs. I really enjoyed the writing in this book. The scenery is vivid and rich. I can smell all the smells and taste all the food and stuff like that. It's really good. I felt like I was there where the characters were. That part is really good. The characters are deep and full of emotion and they have interesting relationships, but the main character kind of goes back on his like development at certain points where it's like he does something that he shouldn't have done because he's different now, but then he's actually not different and that shouldn't have happened. And the reason this happens is because this author is very focused on parallels and poeticism, if that's a word, stuff like that. Like he's more worried about stuff like that instead of a character development that makes sense or a plot line that makes sense. Stuff like that. It's like doing stuff just for the sake of a parallel, a literary parallel, if you know what I mean, or irony, stuff like that. So that's kind of frustrating. I get why you're doing that, and I like stuff like that, but not when it sacrifices the previously established development of a character literally a couple pages before. So yeah. The other thing, this book is brutal. Has so much terrible stuff in it, just all throughout the book. Terrible stuff, horrific stuff. Just and honestly, I didn't like that. Not because I don't like books that have brutal stuff, because the reality is life is brutal, and that kind of is the message in this book. But my problem with that is, I think everybody knows to some extent that life is brutal. You may not understand it the way that these characters understand it, but everyone understands that. Maybe not. But here's my problem. My problem is that if you're going to introduce me to these horrific things, I don't know why I said introduce, but if you're going to talk about these horrific things that ranges from rape, terrorism, war, stuff like that. Actually, I don't know if there's terrorism. I mean, I guess it is technically terrorism, but not like political terrorism. There's just terrifying things that are happening. So we have public executions and all this stuff that's just terrible. And then the author just kind of gives this kind of like, well, that's just life. And it's like, it shouldn't be. It's wrong. And that's fine. I understand that some people have to witness these things, but if you're going to talk about those things, you should also talk about healing and coping with it, or the why these things are happening, not just that's just how it is. That just seems wrong to me. But yeah, and I don't like that. Like you don't even have to talk about healing, although I really think you should if you're going to talk about these sort of topics. Oh, there's also suicide, and it's honestly terrible, and I don't recommend this book. Um, but I get what he was trying to do. It's just, it's like it's not worth it for what he did with it. There's books where they do terrible things, like in The Tattooist of Auschwitz. That's about Nazi camps. Very, very terrible. But then the author talks about like not how to get through it, but how they did get through it. So it feels like there's a point to having that in there, other than it is something that happened. And again, I understand that this happens in places in the world, but the commentary of life is just bad. I just don't like that. I don't know why. I just don't like it because it's so blatantly obvious. And also, my other problem with it, and it goes into more why I don't like this stuff that happens, is that it almost feels like it's put in there just for dramatic effect. Like, it didn't have to be a beheading. It could have been someone, it could have been something else. You know, it didn't have to, or it wasn't a beheading, sorry, it was a public execution. But it could have been something else. It could have been someone brutally killing an animal. You know, it didn't have to be him killing a person. It could have been him doing something really messed up. Something else really messed up. It didn't matter. It was just that something bad had to happen. It didn't matter what it was. And that's how I feel about all the terrible things that happened in this book. It's not, because in other books, it's the thing that happens is what matters, not that there's something happening. But with this book, it feels like it's just something has to happen for drama and and uh, and stuff like that. I don't like that. So that's a big problem I had with this book. The other problem I had, well, not a problem. It's just I've read reviews saying that this book is what Westerners read so that they can feel better about the situation in the Middle East. And I don't know. I can't comment on that. I mean, I hope that's not the point of this book. I don't know. That's all I have to say about this book. You can watch my full review of it. The link will be in the description. When I upload that video, it'll be in there. Might not be in there right away. And that'll be how it'll be for all the books, except for maybe Monster. But, because I probably won't do a video about that for a while. But all the other books, you'll be able to find a full review for it in the description at some point. Moving on. On a kind of brighter note, because I actually love this book, Jurassic Park by Michael Creighton. Jurassic Park really surprised me because of how profound and philosophical it is, which I thought it was more just going to be cool thriller, dinosaur go rawr, you know, that sort of thing. But it was much more than that. It had a very deep meaning to it that I loved. Jurassic Park is about a park, an island, a kind of like a zoo/amusement park with dinosaurs. You probably know that. It's a really popular book and it's a big movie, kind of. It's pretty big. But and I kind of read it. I kind of read it just in time because there's a new one coming out. So that's cool, and it has the original cast in it. So that's cool. But that's what Jurassic Park is about. And again, it surprised me a lot because it's of the meaning. Also, the dinosaurs in this book are beautiful. They feel like real creatures, and I'll explain why. So when you watch the movie, they obviously don't feel completely real. Like when I look at my cat over here, she's very real. And then if I read a description of her, it would look like that. When I read a description of the dinosaurs in this book, they are real. Like they aren't just some mythical creatures or a dragon from a fantasy story. They are real, breathing, living creatures that have existed at some point. And that makes them much more terrifying because of the reality that these have been real and they could be real again, I guess you could say, technically. So that's really cool. I also love the dinosaurs. Like I feel very attached to them. Sometimes I even side with them, especially when they're cute ones like the baby velociraptor and some other ones. I really feel attached to them, but terrified of them at the same time. So that's cool. Also, when it comes to like the sci-fi aspects to this book, I think it's extremely well done. And again, it adds to the realism of this story, which makes it all the more terrifying and frightening. So I think he did an excellent job with that. There are points where you have to slow down the plot, especially at the beginning, to do this world building, to explain how things are, why things are the way that they are. But it really follows through and does a great job at making this feel like such a real thing happening. Lastly, I want to talk about the characters for this book before I move on. The characters are not the focal point, but I'm okay with that because the focal point is kind of the message in this book. But as I explained in my review video, it's almost like I'm the main character and I'm the one going through development. The characters, there's really not that much development, but they do have unique personalities that really reach out from the page. So that's cool. I like the characters and I feel they are lovable characters, but they just, like I said, they aren't the focal point, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Which surprises me, honestly. I thought that was going to be a criticism for this book, but it's actually a plus to this. I just spit. It's actually a plus to this book. It's a good thing because then he's able to get his point across. And there are characters that I love that they're like, oh, I love that character. So yeah, it's overall just an amazing book. It makes me appreciate the sci-fi genre so much more, even though I already appreciated it and respected it a ton. This book, it's just like, wow, this is why I read sci-fi. This is why I read books, because it entertained me like crazy while also blowing my mind in terms of the philosophical elements. So yeah, great book. I want to take a quick moment to ask you to like this video if you think I'm doing at least alright. If there's something that you think I could be doing better, please let me know in the comments. I'm open to criticism and suggestions. Please feel free to let me know. Also, if you are enjoying my content, enjoying this video, be sure to subscribe to see my other videos when they come out. Let's get on with the review. Next, let's talk about Monster by Naoki Ursula. Now, this is volume 3, but I'm actually reading volume 4 currently. But I read this one during February. So, yeah. I don't really have much to say about it because everything that I said in the last wrap-up applies to this one. And I can't really say anything else without giving spoilers, but it's really good so far. I'm super happy with where the story's going. It's becoming more like narrowed down, I guess you could say, because in the first 2 volumes it kind of feels like we're all over the place, but now I kind of feel like it's becoming more of a I don't know how to explain it. It's not so much like I'm starting to feel at home with these characters, especially the side characters, because that kind of was going to be a criticism, is that these characters pop up for a page or 2 and then they're gone. So, but now I'm starting to see returning characters throughout this volume and the 4th volume, which I'm not that far into, but really good. I'm enjoying it. That's all I have to say about it. I'm just really happy with this. I'm really happy I'm reading it. The moral of the story with this book for me, not this specifically, but it's like, don't not read a manga or a graphic novel just because it's not an actual book. Like, it counts as reading, and the stories that you get out of it are just amazing. Like, this is such crazy good storytelling that so many people could be missing out on because they don't want to read it because it has pictures. But that makes it so much cooler and unique. Not that real books are better or worse than this. It's just, it's a unique way to take in a story. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that one. Next up, Rules of Civility by Amar. It's about a woman going through her friendships and romantic relationships in 1938 New York City. And we also see her like business life too at some points. I again made a full review about this book, but I do want to, I'm not going to go super into detail. I just want to say that this book feels a lot like real life. And let me explain why. So the romantic relationships are very well done. They feel real and mature. The romance isn't so much like it does kind of feel melodramatic sometimes, but it's not like romance to have romance. Like it's just a part of life, I guess. You know, and I like that about this book. It's the thing about Amor Tolls' books is that there's never a single point to the books. He explores a lot of different ideas and aspects of life. The other thing that I love about this book is the writing. Of course, it's freaking amazing. Super vivid imagery and just amazing descriptions. I felt like I was in New York City, unlike I did when I read The Lincoln Highway. So I clearly can tell that it was the writing style and not me as a reader. Because I found this book so much more vivid than Lincoln Highway. And by the way, I listened to them both. Excuse me. I listened to them both as an audiobook, so it couldn't be that. The other thing I want to talk about in this book is the characters. The characters are well done, very profound, very full of depth, of course. The only thing is sometimes some of the characters make choices that don't make sense, but it's nothing that like crazy, nothing that it's like that makes no sense at all. It's not like a plot convenience thing. It's more just like, why are you doing that? So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe because it's like I get why the character's doing it, but I don't agree with it. Maybe that's what it is, which is okay. But overall, I love this book a ton. I definitely recommend it. So yeah, it's good. I liked it, and that's all the books that I read in February. Is overall a pretty decent month. The Kite Runner wasn't the nicest thing to read, but still pretty good. I'm still glad I read it because the writing is really good, and I learned a lot from the writing in the Kite Runner. But then Jurassic Park and this were amazing. So yeah, good month. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful day.